concludes the formal presentation part. We'd be glad to answer any questions that you may have. So I believe we have mics in the room.
Yes, hello, this is Rick Lopez, LPAC TV. So I kind of had, you guys touched on a lot of subjects, so I'm going to try to cut it down to just two questions. One is a propulsion question, and the other one's based on biology and being able to keep our astronauts alive. So if we can imagine a world where our policymakers stopped throwing money at Wall Street and actually took our space program more seriously, what do you think of trying to create a fusion-based propulsion system that would create a 1G acceleration in order to get to Mars quickly so that our astronauts don't become a blob by the time they get there? And then the other question I had is more specific to, now it's pretty clear that there are these loss of calcium and atrophy, etc. One thing I know is that salamanders, when they lose a limb, and I know there's been experiments where we've cut their limbs, there's electromagnetic effects in their regeneration of their limbs. And it seems to me that as astronauts are in space, it's not just simply a question of weight or stress, but there's possibly needs to be an investigation into how electromagnetic phenomena plays a role in, being able to regenerate, the bone loss and things of that matter. So I'm wondering what kind of research is done in understanding that. So thank you.
Okay, so Ben, you want to cover the constant acceleration question?
The fusion propulsion?
Yes.
Well, I wish I knew more about that, but present-day concept for fusion propulsion requires heavy things to confine the plasma. Those magnets are very heavy, and so that form of fusion is difficult to make it weigh sufficiently small to make it useful as a propulsion device. Remember, not only is the thrust important, the weight of the engine. So the engine is unusually heavy to get a proportional thrust. You're not going to get an advantage. So fusion needs to make progress in its containment of the plasma so that it doesn't weigh as much. And so I wish there were some other folks here that were cognizant of the fusion issues, and I'm not that cognizant of them. But certainly high ISP would be there because of the temperature would be exceedingly high, and therefore the ISP would be very good. So there is a potential benefit.
Okay, Dr. Charles on the biology aspect.
Well, I was going to answer the propulsion question too.
Thank you.
Along those lines, certainly 1G transit times are to be hoped for and would make our lives a whole lot easier. I can take a lot of credit for solving problems if we just had 1G continuously on the way to Mars and back. Unfortunately, my expertise is not so good as it is in propulsion when it comes to salamanders. I may have said I was a biologist, but I was being fast and loose with my facts. I'm not expert on salamander limb regeneration, although I do know that the idea is not unheard of, and we constantly receive inquiries just as yours is, and the answer is always that that's good for salamanders, but we're not sure the same anatomy, the same physiology works with in humans. And I sound glib, but I'm not being glib, because every time a question comes up, I always pulse my experts and say, have I missed something? Is there something new that I should know about? So the next time I get asked that question, I have the right answer, and the answer is no. We're still linked to the traditional ways of repairing and restoring bone through exercise and through pharmaceuticals and things like that. But I will make the inquiry again, and if I find something out, I'll let you know.
Okay, we have a question there at the mic.
Okay, Bob Terry, Mars Society and other venues. Several questions for the fellow from Boeing. Are there any concepts still active with you which put more assets on the surface rather than orbit? And what's your view of the general trade space between assets on the surface versus assets in orbit? For example, your nuclear thermal protector device doesn't need to hold its hydrogen for 600 days. If you've got assets on the surface, you can throw some hydrogen up to it after you've been on a long stay mission. And there are many other things like this which seem to have a lot of advantage if you go ahead and place assets on the surface, but modern architectures seem to just wash over that. In situ resource propellants for Mars sample returns seem very important. So where do you put the emphasis on in situ propellants in your architectures? Because that seems notably absent as well. And I really think it make the nuclear thermal propulsion system a very good candidate for a long-stay mission, for example. The second question generally is your solar electric and nuclear electric and solar all really depend on the number of kilowatts you can get from a kilogram of prime power. Presently, I think technology has 40 kilograms per kilowatt, which needs to come down at least an order of magnitude to enable electric propulsion on short transits, I think. And where do you plan to take the research in order to achieve something like an order of magnitude reduction in alpha? Second question. Okay, that's a start.
Great questions. I'm going to start the second one first because specific power is very important. And you mentioned 40 kilograms per kilowatt, but we can actually believe we can get to 15 kilograms per kilowatt. And that's really a combination of the specific power of the thruster system and the array system combined. So 15 kilograms per kilowatt is probably the area that we're targeting for these vehicles. And that's not unreasonable. That's not overly optimistic. And in part, you get that because of the concentrator array, its packaging efficiency. It's a lot lighter than the array that is on the station. It's 6 times more efficient in a packaging perspective than what we built for the station. As the solar array cells increase in efficiency, it's going to get even lighter. Also, the AFRL has got published results for these Hall thrusters, and they're getting to have very good specific power numbers as well. So when you combine the two, you're getting around 15 to 20 for a 1 megawatt, 400 kilowatt system, and that's good enough to do these missions. That's what we use in our mission analysis. Now the other question is in situ, and as you know, Mars Direct plan is totally devoted to in situ production. And so you land a system, you carry hydrogen with you, and you make oxygen from the CO2 atmosphere. A byproduct is carbon, you add that to the hydrogen, CH4 is, and that produces methane, hydrogen in the carbon. So you have propellant for the ascent stage, and in that plan, that ascent stage is loaded with enough propellant to do the trans-Earth injection. So that system is totally devoted to everything is produced on the surface. Now my question is, that's a great Evolve 2 path, but do you want to dedicate the first mission to something like ISRU? Perhaps it's good for the second or third mission, because that's another additional risk into all the other risks that we have creating in situ. And as Brent pointed out the first, I think, he's going to wait and send the crew after they've made sure the in situ propellant has already been produced and is in the vehicle. When you do that, you have more confidence to do it that way. Also, I would like to have the crew on the surface when in situ propellant production is going on to monitor and to fix the system when it breaks. So your first mission would have an ascent stage that's not devoted to and doesn't rely on in situ. They land, they're there for 600 days. Part of their task is to watch and monitor the next mission's ascent stage and to make sure that in situ plan is working correctly. So they're not dependent for the first mission on that technology, because you've got to be very careful for the first mission. First time you try all these things together, you want to be on the safe side. And that's my perspective. But you do save a lot of mass when you go to in situ propellant. And I think you can evolve to that because the lander I showed was methane. So the technology of propulsion is already there. All you have to do is load the tanks later. And so that is my approach. It's a little more conservative, but you do save quite a bit of mass with in situ. By the way, now that you've got me talking, I like to take lunar oxygen. 40% of lunar regolith is oxygen. You can demonstrate oxygen extraction on the moon, fill up part of your lander. A LOX hydrogen lander, Joe, is at least 6 parts out of 7 oxygen. So you can also use in situ on the moon. Do you have the funds to devote to developing that and the other systems at the same time? We can't buy all 4 systems I described. We probably can pay for one. And that's what we're going to have to live with.
So yeah, in situ is in the architecture, so it is a critical element as we move forward.
Hi, this is Dan Hussein, American Patent Agency. I had a question for the second speaker. Towards the end of your talk, you mentioned something that actually made me jump out of my seat. You said that there's a paradox of potentially a a contamination that could wind its way back to Earth. What is the actual probability of something like that happening? It seems that it would be rather small, but I'd like you to comment on it.
The National Research Council has debated this at length in the past. Their conclusion is that the probability is very low, but non-zero. There's no scientific argument that can be brought forward that will take it to zero. For most of the scientists that I talk to, they would say the probability is something like 1 divided by Avogadro's number. It's very, very, very low.
That's my intuition, is that it's so infinitesimally small. So is it a serious concern for us?
Well, part of our responsibility is to protect the public. And some of the risks of this mission will accrue to the people who are on the mission, but this is one that will accrue to people who are not on the mission. And we have to be sensitive to their needs and wishes also. So this is a matter for the discipline that we call planetary protection. And that in turn needs to involve some discussions with the public about what are the risks and how do we address them.
All right, let's get some questions answered in the front.
Hi, I'm Doug Gage from XPM. Quick question for Dr. Charles, which is, it seems, especially for a long-stay mission, it'd be very important to know the biological set point for 38% gravity, especially for the bone loss density loss and muscle stuff. Do you want to put centrifuges on the space station in the near term to try and establish what that might be and raise, generations of mice or something?
Yes, desperately. That's not happening. The centrifuge is not part of the plan. Currently there is no capability to provide pseudo-gravity or artificial gravity to any species larger than cells on the space station.
What about the notion of doing any hyper-gravity experiments on the ground to see that build centrifuges, do a 1.2 and 1.4 G generations of mice and try and get a slope line?
And extrapolate backwards.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
Okay,
Sorry.
thank you.
Okay, another question there.
Guy Guliata from Air and Space Magazine, also for Dr. Charles. You suggested, I think, in your talk that the International Space Station was not particularly useful in learning about the effects of radiation on the human body in a Mars mission. Is that in fact what you said? And if so, how would we learn about the effects of radiation on the human body?
Yes, thank you for that question. The ISS environment does impose radiation loads greater than Earth on astronauts on the station, but they're of a different quality and a different amount than exposure beyond the Van Allen belts. The way that again, amongst my many areas of ignorance, this is one of them. One of the ways that we expose. One of the ways that we understand the effects of deep space radiation on biological systems is by exposing them to exposing test specimens, again cells and smaller animals, to the beams and accelerators like at Loma Linda and at Brookhaven, and then trying to do the appropriate modeling to understand the effects at the cellular level that will allow us to understand more gross effects on larger entities such as astronauts going to Mars, and not trying to say that astronauts are gross, but they are larger than the specimens that we can safely expose to the radiation in the laboratories on the Earth. And I'm also compelled to remind everybody that I'm not comfortable with the ethics of putting astronauts in harm's way when we know there's a definite harm. For example, the radiation environment of deep space. If it could be simulated on the space station, I think there are more appropriate test specimens than astronauts with families and book contracts and offing and so forth. And I understand that eventually astronauts will be exposed to the radiation environment of going to Mars, but that will be because they're going to Mars, and there's a risk-benefit ratio to be calculated by, again, somebody besides myself.